In this section, we're going to look at Python for loops using range. Looking at the expenses program we just created in the demo, we want the user to be able to enter their own expenses instead of having this hard-coded list of expenses. But with our current set of tools, we would type input 7 times to get the 7 expenses for the week. Is there a way we can loop 7 times instead and ask for input inside of the loop? So far, we've only seen for loops that loop over a list, but the range function in Python generates and returns a sequence which we can think of as a list. Calling range with 7 in parentheses creates a sequence of 7 integers starting from 0. You can customize range by giving it a start, stop, and step value. So range 7 is the same as range 0 for the start, 7 for the stop, and 1 for the step because each number increases by 1. Another example is range 2 for the start, 14 for the stop, and 2 for the step. This would give us even numbers starting at 2 and stopping before 14. So we get 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12. Now we can use a for loop like we've seen before with the sequence generated by range. Here we have for I in range 7, and then we print each number I. This lets us loop a certain number of times, which is what we needed to enter expenses. If we look back at our program, we can ask the user to enter 7 expenses by creating a for loop with for I in range 7. Then inside the loop, we'll ask them to enter each expense. Now, if we run this, we can see that we can enter 7 separate expenses and then see the total printed as you spent $72. What if the user has a different number of expenses other than 7 that they want to sum up? We can also prompt the user for the number of expenses they have and then save that to a variable num expenses. Then we can use that num expenses variable in the range function. That will change the number of times the for loop runs depending on how many expenses the user has. If we run this again, we can see the user enters 5 for the number of expenses. Then they're able to enter 5 separate expenses and see the total is printed. Now that we've seen how to use range, let's create a loan calculator example in the next demo.